Welcome to the Power Up Your Marriage and Business podcast. We're your hosts, Robert and Kaylee Fukui. I know we're supposed to say we created this podcast for you, but we really created this for us. Because one of the power struggles we witnessed growing up and now dealing with in the present is balancing the needs of the business with priorities of marriage. Does this sound familiar?
As children of entrepreneurs, we're often on the receiving end of that struggle. Parents worked so hard to provide that they did not have time for us. We realized it wasn't their fault. They did only what they knew. But not wanting to repeat the past, we've been intentional about building a business that we run as opposed to it running us.
Every day we fight to keep the priorities the priority: faith, family, and finance, or the business. Some think it's impossible, but we say it's possible. You just need to challenge the false belief that a successful business only comes at the sacrifice of your family. It doesn't have to happen that way, and we know we're not the only couple to think this way and achieve it.
If you listen to some of our past episodes and tune in for future ones, you will hear from some amazing marriage experts and entrepreneur couples that have been able to build a thriving marriage and prosperous business at the same time.
So that's why we created this podcast, to be in the front row and hear from others that have gone before us. And from time to time, we'll share what has worked for us as well. But we know there's more to learn and want to take you along for the ride with us. We may never get it perfect, but with intention, we can all build a thriving marriage and prosperous business. So thank you for listening. Sit back, get comfortable, and let's power up your marriage and business. Hey, power couples, and welcome to this week's episode of Power Up Your Marriage and Business.
Yes, this is going to be a fun one.
And we're your hosts, Robert and Kaylee Fukui. And this week's episode is titled The Boring Millionaire, or something to that effect. I'm not sure what's going to make it on the copy at the end, but The Boring Millionaire is the topic at hand for today, honey. And so what do you think that's all about?
I think it's a lot about what people aren't expecting. They want something romantic and shiny and quick fix, and it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, I think for the average person, I think becoming a millionaire, multimillionaire, to make a lot of money, they have to do something really special or very extraordinary, like some business that just blows up, or a stock that you get it just when they're a startup and it just explodes, right? But the reality is, and even market research backs this up, is the average millionaire does things a very pedestrian way that you probably already know about, that you've even heard about, but it hasn't hit you. It hasn't made you excited, right?
Well, and I think these are some of the things you're not expecting us to say.
Yeah, so me, and of course my wife, Kaylee, we don't like to talk about our financial position. Right, honey?
Yeah, usually we don't.
And we do that because, it sounds bragging and all that. But also the reality, as we've got to, talk to different people, as people share with us whatever investment strategy or whatever, people desiring to make a lot of money and all that, we've seen people make some very common mistakes. And we just feel like this will help people and also give the average person hope, because we're going to throw out some stats that will, whatever your financial position is now, we are very confident that you can make a lot of money.
Right, and we want people to be out of debt, and we want them to be able to win with their money. And there's so much bad information out there, I feel like.
Yeah, so this is not going to be some crazy scheme that we're going to try and sell you on or anything. We're just going to show you our experience as well as some market research as well.
Yeah, I promise we're not selling you anything.
Yeah, and so you're going to hear our story, some of the mistakes, the successes, and then end it with the 5 keys to becoming the boring millionaire. So ready, honey?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get to it. Hey, so welcome to this week's episode. And so, honey, let's get to it. Let's talk about, becoming a boring millionaire.
Okay.
And so, have you ever thought, we're in a mature age, right? We're not in our 30s or 40s anymore. But did you ever thought or think growing up, or even in our 20s or 30s, that you'd be sitting in a kind of financial position that we're in?
You know what? I don't know if I really thought about it like that before. We were raised with the family business, which I've told you guys. I don't have any idea what my parents made. We did have real estate growing up, rental properties. We lived in a average size house, 4-bedroom house. We lived within our means. So by all standards, we were probably doing pretty well off as a family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know if I had the mindset that I wouldn't have had it. I think if you don't know what you don't know, and I don't really think about it as all this stuff that we have.
Yeah. And well, we certainly don't live
Oh, not at all.
the income we have, right? I think people would be very surprised because and we still live in our condo that I bought before I met you, right? In
Right.
2000,
But I
2001,
think
2002.
it depends how you look at it. If
Right.
you start from a young age, living within your means and putting away money for retirement,
Yeah. And
sometimes it doesn't take that long with compound interest. But I don't want
uh,
to get ahead of you.
yes, you're getting ahead, honey. That's okay. I'm excited. So, and, I come from different background. My parents are pastors, didn't have a lot of money, especially back then. Being a pastor, you're not supposed to have a lot of money, I guess, back then. So we didn't have a lot of money, kind of paycheck to paycheck. I wouldn't know if we'd say we're poor, but we definitely didn't have a lot of abundance, but we did fine,
Mhm.
right? My parents couldn't pay for me to go to college, so I worked full time to pay for myself, situations like that. But I was still able to live at home rent free. So they were able to provide for us. And we never felt like we were without, but I definitely knew we didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a lot of extras. So didn't have a lot of the toys and stuff that my friends did. And so similar to you though, when launched in my corporate career, didn't really have my eye on making, millions of dollars. But, what I did want is to make sure I had a better life than my parents growing up, at least financially. And because money can't buy you happiness, but certainly just doing the right things to just make sure you prepare when you get into retirement mode that you're not struggling either,
Mhm.
right? Because we see too many people in retirement age struggling financially, and sometimes they have to get back to work. Certainly didn't want to have that. I wanted to be financially free, especially by the time I retire. So definitely made some mistakes as we'll get into, but also did some good things. And I think we're in a position now that we're very blessed financially and well, everything, right? What we do for business, enjoying each other's company. And so the boring millionaire, this topic came, as we kind of shared in the intro, because frankly, I get tired by seeing a lot of these advertisements and trying to get people into investing in this thing or that thing, trying to drive fear, get in the goal because the
Get
market's going to
rich quick.
crash. Yeah, how to make a ton of money very fast on part-time income. And when you have that mentality of chasing the dollar, you tend to make the wrong decisions.
And we've had friends, unfortunately, get involved in some of these things.
Yeah. So I kind of want to lead off. This is going to be the theme for this episode. There's an ancient proverb that goes something like this: steady plotting brings prosperity, hasty speculation leads to poverty. And we'll unpack that because to become the boring millionaire, it doesn't take any really fantastic investment opportunity. It's really steady plotting, which is just continuous investing. And the amount of money isn't as important as the fact that you do it and you do it all the time. Versus the hasty speculation part, getting sucked into these
Mhm.
get rich quick schemes, right? Usually leads to poverty
Yeah, I
because
know
people lose it all.
as a child, my parents raised us to be savers and tithe. And if we didn't have the money, we weren't able to buy it. My mom would say, "Oh, that's fine." Or my dad say, "That's great. Do you have the money to go buy that?" And I'd be like, "No." And they're like, "Well, I guess then you're not buying it."
Yeah, and so that's, I guess, one of the important lessons is staying out of debt, right? That's one of the 5 keys we're gonna talk about later on. Staying out of debt is very important because when you do the math on the debt and the interest that you pay, essentially it's like buying that product twice
Mhm.
because the interest that is accrued is sometimes as much or if not more than the purchase price of the product.
Oh my gosh,
And
you're not
especially if you're
kidding.
talking about credit cards, because people don't pay off the credit cards, which means it goes years before they pay it off at like 20% interest. So when you start running the math, you're losing money when you put things on credit.
Well, and I ask people, like, they've charged $100,000 on their credit card, and I'll be like, "What did you buy?" Because 'Cause I'm thinking, "Oh, they refurnished their whole house, they went on a travel the world." You know what I mean? And you know what they say to me? I
What's
don't
that?
know. There is not one thing that they do. I think it's just accumulation of small little things that they wanna do, that vacation, that dinner, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and it just
Yeah.
adds up to 100,000
Yeah.
pretty quick.
And yeah, so I went in debt, I shared in previous episodes, but when I graduated from college, I was $30,000 in debt. And this is back in 93. And so, and it wasn't on school debt. It wasn't tuition and books because I did work. So I guess, well, maybe it is. I don't know. But I would always pay tuition and books, right? I was able to work for that. But the debt really was around all the entertainment that, all the fun that I had from, going out to clubs and bars and ski trips and all that kind of stuff and just putting on the credit card. And so I came in as $30,000 in debt. And so think about it, if I were to have invested half of that instead of charging that, and go putting $30,000 on credit, if I would have actually not spent as much, like half of that, and get 15K and invested that at 10% interest, which is conservative rate of return from when you invest in the market, at 10% interest, by the time I hit retirement age at 65, which is not too far away, it would be worth 678K,
Oh my gosh.
678,000. So $15,000 back in 93 would then, by the time I retired at the age of 65, would be worth $678,000.
Wow, that
Now,
added up
you
quickly.
can probably get about 12% return if you're more aggressive at 13 or 14% return, but 10% is a round number. So that just shows you how the power of compound interest, as you're saying earlier. But thinking about, God, what if I would have just not spent as much? like, like would I
That's
would
a
I have
lot of
would
partying.
I have had less fun? The answer is no, because I know people, friends in my school and in college that didn't spend as much money, didn't put as much money on credit cards because maybe a lot of them didn't have credit cards, but still had fun.
Oh, I can have all kinds of fun and not cost anything.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's really part of what we want to talk to you about this into this episode too is about mindsets and how you treat money, how you steward money. So, because if you're if you're just kind of focused on trying to make a lot of money,
Mhm.
again, talked about making bad decisions. I hear a lot of these things sometimes about what if you would have invested in Amazon stock before when IPO? Imagine what $1,000 would be worth now, right? And they try to get you to invest into whatever their pitch is.
Right.
Based on that, it's kind of a scarcity mentality or kind of a poverty mindset kind of thing. It's like getting you to it's that FOMO. They're trying to instill FOMO, fear of missing out. You don't want to miss out on the next best, greatest thing. And because of that, people make bad choices.
And you have the last 5 minutes to decide because
Yeah.
we're gonna take the offer
Speed,
off the
right.
table.
They're trying to make you that the offer's going to go away. And certainly, we're involved in one of those pitches. We were invited to one of these pitches and they used that exact thing. What if, you invest in Amazon before one IPO? What if you invest in Apple before one IPO? They threw out that, the what ifs and
Uh-huh.
instill that FOMO and you got to sign here because only 5 more spots in this investment opportunity, right?
Mm. Well, and I wanna say something to that too, and people do not like this at all when I say this, but you need to do your due diligence. I know that's boring. I know it could be a hassle. People don't like to research, but really, you gotta know if you're investing in something,
Hmm.
what it is that you're investing in.
Yeah, and even this example, it was some tech company and all that, and on all the stuff he's throwing out there, and who's going to be investing into it, and all that. And yeah, I Googled it. I couldn't find anything on this person or this company. And if it's that, if the potential for that stock to be that big, even before it goes IPO, they'd be in the news.
Right.
And especially the bull that he was throwing out to us about the valuation of the business. I mean, he
Mhm.
threw out a big number on what the valuation of their business was. And if the valuation of the business was that big, we're talking in the hundreds of billions of dollars, you'd be able to find it on the internet.
Right. And the way he was name dropping of all these presidents and celebrities, I look at my husband, I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, what does he need us? We're just peanuts." You know?
Exactly. And so, things don't make sense. So, anyways, we want to make sure you don't get enamored by these big stories because it is steady plotting that brings prosperity. Creating wealth, financial wealth, is not really that hard. It just takes a little bit of a discipline and a little bit of different mindset and looking at money in a different way.
It does, and I can remember my mom when we were kids, very small. She took us each to the bank and opened up a checking account for us. Well, I guess it was been a savings account. And we would go with our coins after she opened it up and our little $1 bills or whatever, put it up on the counter, and we would deposit into our savings account. So she taught us at a very young age to save.
Yeah, that's very good. It's very wise, especially if you have kids. Start them young instead of giving them. I hear these things about people giving their kids like prepaid credit cards or debit cards, to try and build up their credit and all that kind of stuff. Well, your example is a lot more practical, which is learn how to save, not learn how to spend, learn how to save. I mean, it's just totally backwards, right? Because if you save and invest and grow your money, it doesn't matter what your credit score is because
No,
you're
it
going to have the
doesn't.
money.
You don't even need a credit score.
Exactly. So let me throw out a few stats because the average millionaire, 80% of, actually not the average, but 80% of millionaires come from middle income or lower families.
Yeah, I totally believe it.
Well, you should. It's research.
Yeah, I'm agreeing.
But yeah, majority of millionaires and multimillionaires and billionaires come from middle to lower income families.
And it's people, the jobs that you least expect.
Yeah. And the average age for the millionaire is 57. So this goes to patience. Can you become a multimillionaire at age 30? Absolutely. But the odds are incredibly against you. And it's definitely going to cause you, if you definitely are going to have to take some big risk in a company or some kind of investment to be able to do that. But when it's like less than 1% of millionaires are in that age bracket, right? That means the vast majority of them, they get there the old fashioned way, the kind of the boring way. And so it's not to say that not to take risks, but you got to take some calculated risks, but also know on the back end to make sure you're treating your money, making sure you have, your retirement and those kind of things to make sure that you're going to have money to retire with.
And if you're going to take a risk, make sure it's something that you can afford to lose.
Exactly. So the average millionaire, again, patient and consistent with making money. So average age 57, 80% of them come from middle incomes or lower families. So that means whatever your financial position is, you have the ability to make a lot of money. Only 15% of them hold a senior leadership position in a business, like CEO or C-suite, something like that. Less than a third of millionaires average $100,000 or more over their lifetime. And here's some of the commonly held careers by millionaires.
Yeah, you guys are going to be so surprised with this.
Engineers and accountants and lawyers, maybe not that's so surprising because those are typically higher paying positions. But then, middle managers, lower level managers, and teachers. Teachers is number 5.
Right.
One of the 5 careers commonly held by millionaires is teachers. So we don't think of teachers as having a lot of money.
Typically we don't. You're right.
Right. But I have a theory on why teachers fall in this category. Is because they're typically really good with their money because they have to budget 12 months within 9 months of salary. Right. Because typically, unless they're taking a summer school class or teaching a summer school class, they have the summers off like the kids, which means they're not getting technically paid during that time. So they have to budget their income, their money, to account for 12 months.
Right.
So just budgeting, that's the term budgeting, right? So which means they typically are pretty good with their money because they have to budget.
And I believe too, they start their retirement at a young age.
That
investing into that.
A lot of certain school districts have retirement plans, but I also know because I remember friends at our church who he's definitely probably a multimillionaire. He wasn't actually a school teacher, but he worked for the school district. But same kind of thing. It wasn't like he made his income was crazy big, but I just knew just from talking to him that he was just very good with his money and invested his money. And so
and live within his means.
Yeah. I mean, you look at him, he wore overalls, looked like a good old boy just coming off a tractor, right?
Yeah, wasn't a great guy.
But I'm talking to this guy and I'm like, this dude's rich. I mean, he never told me the money, but I could just tell, right? By how he talked about it.
You cannot tell, I learned this at a young age, how much money somebody has by the car they drive, the house, or what they're wearing.
Yeah.
Because my dad knew a lot of farmers in the area when I was growing up that had old money, but you would never know they had any.
Yeah, exactly. So you just definitely can't tell a book by its cover. And usually when people look like they have a lot of money, they don't.
Right.
That can on the flip side is they have the best cars, the best suits and
all
whatever.
Credit card.
And it's all on credit card debt. Yeah, that all falls apart. So As I kind of alluded to earlier, I wasn't brought up the way Kaylee was with being a good financial steward. I wasn't good with my money. I was the spender. So in our relationship, I'm the spender. Kaylee's the saver. Right? That
Mhm.
sometimes can drive you nuts, but I also know it's the right thing to do because we're doing
You
very
don't
well.
spend like you used
No,
to,
I
but
didn't. I've grown in that area, and especially once I graduated from college and accumulated all that debt and had to do things the right way, and even after college, and as I started to put money in, like the first thing I did when I got my first job out of college, I worked for Coca-Cola and they had a 401k, and they also matched dollar for the first 6% of your income that you put into it. So, like I said, I wasn't good with my money, but I knew that was free money.
did you invest the full
Yeah,
6%? Oh, that's
yeah,
great.
because that was free money,
Uh-huh.
right?
But sometimes you'd be surprised when you save free money that people that do not do
That's true.
it. There is a
That's
huge
true. I knew
amount of
people.
people that do not do it.
Yeah, and talk about poor financial stewardship, because literally that's free money. If I put $100 in, they match it with $100. So, I mean, where else can you get 100% return the second you invest,
Right.
right? You can't
I'd
get that
like to
anywhere.
know where
You can't
where
get
you
that
can find
anywhere
that
other
somewhere
than
else.
when you work at a company that makes a match. So I did that, but then I also lost some money, or we, I guess, because we were married after in some bad real estate deals that my wife suggested, really counseled me not to, but then I did it anyway. So that goes to a whole nother story about, really working with each other, with your spouse, and making decisions together, because that costs us a lot of money. And again, if we would have invested it properly, it would be worth a lot more money. So made some bad investments, got a lot of debt coming out of college, but still was able to, correct those things, pay off the debt, overcome some of the bad investments, and still do very well on the outset. So I say this not to brag, but it's to give everybody hope.
Right.
When you look at the average millionaire, it takes them 57, 80% are not going to come from high income. They're not going to get some big inheritance from their parents
Or
or
they're
like
not
that.
making like $1 million a
Yeah,
year.
they're not making a lot of money. They have a lot of them have pretty average positions.
Mhm.
So it's really, and I don't know if you've heard the book, The Average Millionaire or The Millionaire Next Door.
Yeah, I read
Definitely,
both.
definitely picked a copy of that up, because it's basically speaking this basically the same thing that we're talking about right now. That it doesn't take a lot. You don't have to make a ton of money, because income and wealth are not the same thing. So your income that you bring in and the wealth that you generate are not the same thing. They don't mean the same thing. And income is not directly tied to wealth building, because you can make a lot of money, as we said, but people can just spend it all and go into debt.
Oh, and we know a lot of those people. They're making really good money,
And
and they don't have a cent to their name.
yeah, and I mean, you can look at, celebrities to athletes that make these big contracts, lottery winners, right? There's
Oh
a
my
lot of
gosh,
examples out there,
that's sad.
people that made millions and hundreds of millions of dollars and went into debt.
They lost it all. Yeah,
So
went to
the
jail.
amount of income that you generate does not necessarily equate to the wealth that you build.
Mhm.
And it's not about the money that you earn, but it's the money that grows, right? Wealth generation is investing into something that appreciates in amount.
Mhm.
And so start to ask, where do you put your money?
Well, it's the mindset too of being able, as you're saying, to handle it because people think, "Oh, I have $1 million. I can never spend $1 million." You see it all the time with the lottery. Oh my gosh, it doesn't last them long at all. They think
Hmm.
there's no way to blow through it.
Yep, exactly. So you don't have to make a ton of money, but you definitely want to make sure you treat your money well, you steward your money well. Where do you put your money, right? What are you spending it on versus what are you investing into? So if you really want to if you're really serious about creating wealth, then you really got to have more an investment mentality as opposed to spending mentality,
Mhm.
right? I had a spending mentality. So there's a lot of money that we left on the table, or I left on the table by spending it all away, or making bad investment decisions because I got caught up chasing a shiny object instead of just doing the prudent thing, the steady plotting that has generated the wealth that we have.
Well, yeah, and we want you to start thinking about retirement. You're never too young to start because how many times have you seen people or heard them, "Oh, I can't retire. I don't have any money."
Yep, exactly.
And
And
it's so sad.
so I'm going to go in a couple scenarios that kind of speaks to that. But before I do that, I want to really talk to, because our audience are married entrepreneurs. So you're
Mhm.
married. Definitely come together as husband and wife and appreciate each other's gifts. One's a spender, one's a saver, right? In most relationships, one's a spender, one's a saver.
Right.
And you don't want to spend it all away. You definitely need to save and invest for some, but you don't want to be all consuming and saving and investing and don't have any fun either, right?
Right.
So there's a balance, right? We have a balance in our life, and we always had a balance, from the very beginning. But appreciate each other's gifts and give each other space because it's very beneficial and important to both save and invest,
Well, and I think it got kind
or
of
spend and
challenging
invest.
for me. I mean, when you had your corporate job, then I knew pretty much financially where we were at. But then when you left and started our own company, it was a little bit more challenging then because we didn't have the steady income coming
Mhm.
in. And so all that to say is it really helped for me with our weekly meetings. We would sit down and talk about our finances, where we're at, what was coming down the pipeline, so I could kind of get a vision and not get into panic mode of, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
how are we gonna do
So it's
this?
definitely important to budget for how much money goes into your spending, saving, and investing, and then what you budget for spending and for having fun,
Hmm.
right? Because if all you're doing is saving and investing and not having fun, it's going to drive the spender crazy. But if you're spending it all away, not only going to drive the saver crazy, but you're also going to lose out in the back end because you're not going to have money,
Right.
right? So you definitely need to save and invest. Everybody does, but you also need to have fun at the same time. But just get together as husband and wife. Don't fight about it. Create a budget to be able to have both.
Right.
So let's get into a couple examples about how much or how little it really takes to become a millionaire. So in 30 years, so if you're 35 and you're going to retire by 65, if you just start investing $500 a month at 10% interest, like I said, get with a good financial advisor, but 10% interest in some kind of mutual fund is very basic. It's a very conservative amount. I'm going to sound like Dave Ramsey here, right? But that $500 a month at 10% interest over 30 years is $1 million, is a little over $1 million. So think about that. $500 a month.
That really
That's not a
adds
lot.
up.
So think about for yourself as you look at your income and what you're spending it on, where can you carve out money just to put it $500 a month away? Now, you may not have that right away because maybe you have a lot of credit card debt or debt that you need to pay off, which that's first, but at least start putting something,
Yeah.
$50, $100, right?
And you can just have it automatically deducted. That's the
Mhm.
best way because you don't even miss it. You don't even see it.
Yeah. So, so even if it's just $50 a month,
Hmm.
do something, create a habit of investing, budgeting and putting some money into investments. And as you pay off your debt, as your income grows, you put more and more money and try to get up to, putting 10, 15% of your income into your retirement plan.
Because do you really need that latte every day?
No, you don't, right?
You know, you make yours at home. So,
Yeah, exactly. And think about this. 30 years seems like a long time, and that's why people don't do it
hmm,
because, oh, such a long time. And also it kind of accumulates slowly. That $500 a month over the first 20 years, it's only worth, only in quotations here, $362,000. And it's that last 10 years, it grows another 700,000.
well, but the key is starting young.
And so, it's because the time of compound interest is the key. So to your point about starting young, start now, because the moment you invest that money, compound interest can take effect. But the longer you wait, then the more money you have to put in later to earn that same $1 million if you want to retire by 65. All the same. So you don't want to waste time. So time factor is more important than the amount of money factor. So put the money in now and then just get into the habit of investing in yourself and then grow it. So one of the things to do to figure out how much money you can invest now is track every penny that you spend for a month. Everyone in the family, you, your spouse, and yeah, definitely do. We did that many years ago, right, honey?
Yes.
Track every penny. So I'd get a receipt, even if it was just for a can of Coke. I mean, or Snicker bar or something. And I remember it was pretty tedious, but we did it. And at the end of the month, kind of surprised where our money went,
You know,
right?
it adds up so quickly.
How much it went into that we call it meals and entertainment bucket.
Oh, yeah. That's
The
really
just having fun bucket,
crazy
right?
how that adds up so quickly.
And And we weren't as bad as another couple that were spending well over $1,000, and they weren't making a lot of money themselves, but they
Oh,
spent
this
over $1,000 just on going out to eat.
yeah. Was it 1,000 or
Over
15?
th- over
Something
over 1,000. Well, I
crazy.
knew it was over 1,000. It could have been
It's
1,500, but I
like,
know it was like
wow,
over a
and they
thousand.
had no idea, and when they added it all up at the end of the month, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. No wonder we're really struggling financially.
So think about it. We tend to spend more money than we realize, and in places that we don't need to. So when you start tracking every penny for a month and then go back and look and categorize where all your money's going, right? There's utilities, there's rent or mortgage, meals and entertainment, but make sure you categorize everything. And then you'll be able to find ways to save a little bit extra money to invest or to pay down your debt first and then invest your money, right? So, and it doesn't take, again, you don't have to earn a lot of money to be able to invest. And so definitely do that exercise. I think you'll be very surprised. It'll be very revealing, and you'll definitely find areas where you can actually make money or invest to make money.
And money areas where you can save.
Hmm. Yeah. So keys to getting rich the boring way. There's just 5 quick points we're going to throw out here. And it's really all about having the mindset of wealth building, right? Investing versus spending.
Yeah, you're thinking long term as opposed to short.
Yeah. And so as you're getting ready to pay for something, ask yourself, am I spending or am I investing? Right? And so you definitely want to do some investing. And so really you need to develop a better mindset and some better habits around how you treat money. So the first key is now around if you're in debt, get out of debt. And even for us, even though we don't have any credit card debts or car debt or anything else, we do have 2 mortgages, our house we live in and an investment property. But even now we're in the process of eliminating those 2. And hopefully by the time, this podcast airs, that'll be done. And then
Yeah,
we'll have no debt at all, no
that's
mortgages.
exactly what we want. I mean, I had a car, kid you not, for 20 years, you guys, that I paid cash for before I got married.
Yeah.
And Robert made me get rid of it. He's like, honey, you really need to get something new. I'm like, but it's paid for.
Yeah.
And then I
And
thought about it, and you were right. It was time because I could tell things were going to start going wrong with it, and it's going to cost more to fix it than
yeah, and
replace
new
it.
meaning it's a 3-year-old Lexus. We
Right.
got
So
a
I've
great deal,
never owned a new car in my life.
but it only had 20,000 miles and it still has a new car smell.
It's new to me, yeah.
And we've paid, a fraction of it because it was 3 years old, but it only has 20,000 miles on it. And so anyways, get out of debt. Number 1, invest now and consistently. Amount doesn't matter. It's the steady plodding mentality, right? The steady plodding. Just keep doing it and just keep doing it and keep doing it. And ultimately, you do want to start diversifying where your money is invested in. One good thing about mutual funds is even one fund is you're diversifying your investment because one fund is usually made up of about 100 companies. And so that the investment money is spread out over a lot of different companies. But even even in mutual funds, like we got 5 different funds. We also have real estate. And we have our business, right? So diversify the wealth too, because when the market, hits, does something bad, it doesn't always affect all of your investments the same way. So just in case you need to pull some money out for whatever reasons, anyways, invest now consistently. Diversify your wealth is number 3. Have a long-term perspective and don't try to time the market. That's the hasty speculation part. Like right now, last year the market took a dump or big hit, 25, it lost 25, 28%. And a lot of people started pulling money out. They started speculating, hey, well, once the market hits the bottom, then we'll put money back in. Well, that doesn't usually happen because people don't get confident enough to put their money back into the market until the market's gone up quite a bit.
Right. And then it's too late.
So they lost the bottom. So don't time the market. Just keep investing because even on the way down and on the way up, because at the end of the day, the market overall is always going to be higher than it was today.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so even as the market's coming down, as it's going back up, as you keep investing, that money is still going to grow.
Right. Well, it kind of reminds me of your sister. She just started investing, and she looks at her statement every month. She goes, "Oh, she went down. She's about to have a panic attack." I just said, "Okay, you're going to write it out. It's all right.
Don't look at your statements
Every month and get yourself all worked up."
Yeah.
And
yeah. And so, to the fifth point is keep investing even when the market is down.
That's the
Because
time to get
that's the
in.
time to get in, right? Exactly. That's where you make your money.
But
is when the
people
market's
don't.
down.
They
Right,
they
exactly.
get out when it's high and then they invest. Did I say that right?
So they usually invest when it's high and get out when it's low.
Yeah. There you go. That's what I'm trying to say.
You're supposed to buy low, sell high,
Right.
but people buy high, sell low. So
I wasn't sure I was going in the right direction.
yeah, so just keep investing, right? Especially if you're investing into mutual funds or you have your own stock portfolio or whatever, just keep pumping money in, because you don't lose money until you actually cash out anyway. And so because you have a long-term horizon on things, you don't need the money until you retire if you're talking about your retirement account. But if you do have money invested into more of a short-term thing where maybe you want to pull money out for a house or something like that, then you do have to be a little more cautious. But then you also want to be probably investing in things that don't provide as great a return, because the lower return investments typically have less volatility, right? So high returns mean high risk. Low returns mean low risk. Like savings account, low return, low risk. So you got to think about what you're going to need the money for. So for retirement, it's long term. So just put the money in high risk, let it ride. As you get closer to retirement, though, you do want to kind of rebalance your portfolio so that it's less risky. Or if you need to pull out your money short term, like for a car or for a house, then you probably don't want to invest into something that has too much risk, right? Because you're going to have to pull the money out sooner, and you don't want to have that kind of volatility. So anyways, those 5 tips: get out of debt, invest now and consistently, diversify your wealth, keep a long-term perspective and don't time the market, and then keep investing even when the market goes down. So I think if you just follow those 5 things.
And I know they're boring, you guys. They're not all shiny and romantic.
Yeah. Get with a good financial advisor and get some good counsel around you, because within what you invest into mutual funds and all that, you definitely want to get some counsel around that. But hopefully you see that you can do it. Right?
Yes.
I think that was the main point.
We want to give you hope.
Yeah. The main point of this conversation, this episode, was that you can do it. You can make a lot of money and still enjoy life.
It's never too late.
You don't have to take some huge risks, right? Just, again, mutual funds, pretty low risk. And so we've done it. I don't say we're the biggest financial experts, although a lot of people think of us that way. But really, the reality is we haven't done anything that special.
No, and we don't invest in anything we don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't really done things real special with our money other than invest.
But Dave Ramsey talks about that all the time. The things people make money in are the things that are really boring, like real estate,
mutual funds,
your mutual funds, and then your retirement.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are the basics.
So, and statistically, that's where people make their money, is real estate and the market. Mm-hmm. Those are the 2 things. So hopefully this gives you some inspiration, some hope, and you go out and you start investing right away, or get some counsel, but you start thinking and taking action towards investing. And again, track every penny you spend for a month and see where the money goes. You'll be surprised where you'll be able to find money to invest. And
if your employer is matching what you're investing into your retirement, your 401k, please take advantage of that.
Yep. So hope you enjoyed this episode. Go ahead and share it.
Yes, and please.
We'll talk to you next week. All right. God bless. Thank you for listening to the Power Up Your Marriage and Business podcast. If you found this episode to be valuable, please leave a rating and share it with an entrepreneur couple you know.
Yes, and remember to hit the subscribe button so that you'll get all of our latest episodes, and visit our website, Power Couples by Design, to access a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business, like our weekly videos and on-demand webinars. And don't forget to download our free 8-step guide that you can find on our homepage to help your marriage and business thrive.
We're here to help you build a thriving marriage and a prosperous business. God bless your marriage and business. See you next week.